Okay, so today we're diving into one of Vietnamese literature's most cherished works, Prison Diary. Now, for decades, a pretty serious controversy tried to tear this powerful art away from its famous artist. We're going to unravel a story of incredible hardship, beautiful poetry, and a literary mystery to get to the truth. Because, you see, proving who really wrote these poems is about so much more than just history. It's about protecting a national legacy. This one verse right here, it just perfectly captures the defiant, totally unbreakable spirit of Nhật ký trong tù, or Prison Diary. It's this collection of over 100 poems that feel like a raw, really intimate look into a revolutionary's soul, all written under the absolute harshest conditions you can imagine.
It sounds almost unbelievable, right? But yeah, despite its fame and its deep connection to Ho Chi Minh, the authorship of this masterpiece was seriously challenged. And this whole thing created a literary mystery that kind of cast a shadow over the work itself. So let's do what we do best. Let's follow the evidence and get to the bottom of it.
First things first, let's set the stage. To really get a handle on the controversy, we need to understand the masterpiece at the heart of it all, and see exactly how those first seeds of doubt were planted.
Just try to imagine it for a second. You're being moved from prison to prison for over a year. The poems, they document this absolutely grueling journey, the hunger, the sickness, the filth, the chains. And yet, through all of that darkness, they just shine with this unwavering optimism and a deep, profound sense of humanity. It's incredible.
And here's the twist in the story. The actual physical notebook where the poems were written, it vanished. For more than 10 years, it was just gone. And it was in that vacuum, in the absence of the original artifact, that this whole other theory about who wrote it started to bubble up.
So, what exactly was the case against Ho Chi Minh's authorship? Let's break down the main arguments that form the foundation of this whole literary challenge.
Okay, so the main counter-narrative, which was pushed mostly by a scholar named Lê Hữu Mục, really stood on 4 pillars. The arguments attacked, well, everything, from the date scribbled on the cover to the author's language skills to the very ideology inside the poems. They even came up with a totally different person as the author.
All right, now for the fun part, the investigation. Let's put these claims to the test. How does the actual evidence, from the manuscript itself and the historical record, stack up against all this?
Let's start with that date. The deniers pointed straight to the cover, which clearly reads 1932-1933. But it turns out, this was a deliberate bit of misdirection. The author knew the contents were sensitive, so he backdated the cover by 10 years to throw off the guards. And the proof? Well, you just have to look deep inside the manuscript, on page 53, where he wrote down the real dates, 1942 to 1943.
And get this, the content of the poems themselves, it's like a historical timestamp. They mention Wendell Willkie's visit to China. That happened in 1942. They talk about the 6th year of China's war against Japan. Do the math. That's 1943. And they speak of a world engulfed in flames and even explicitly call out the Nazi devils. These are all events from World War II, not the early 1930s. Case closed on the date.
Then there's the geography. The whole theory of the other author puts him in a Hong Kong prison. But the poems, they basically create a detailed roadmap of suffering across China's Quang Tai province. From Tinh Tế to Liao Chao to Quay Lim, the places mentioned match Ho Chi Minh's known imprisonment route perfectly. And you know what's not mentioned? Not one single word about Hong Kong.
But, maybe the most crucial piece of evidence comes from the author's own words. He doesn't hide who he is. He comes right out and says, "I am the representative of the Vietnamese people." I mean, that's not just a line of poetry. That's a political statement that explains exactly why he's in China in the first place. And he goes even deeper than that. He describes the suffering of his homeland, of Vietnam, as a personal, internal wound. This profound sense of national identity, of feeling his country's pain as his own, well, that's the emotional heart of the entire work. It's a feeling that could only come from a Vietnamese patriot, definitely not a Chinese bandit.
So what about that claim that the themes just don't sound like a communist writing? Well, not so fast. The ideology in the poems actually lines up perfectly with what you find in Ho Chi Minh's other writings. This idea that poetry must have steel, or that artists are like soldiers on a cultural front, that's a consistent theme you see throughout his life's work. Honestly, the evidence is just overwhelming. The timeline, the geography, the personal statements, the ideology, it all points to one person. Okay, so that brings us to the final chapter of this story. With the authorship beyond any reasonable doubt,
we can finally appreciate the incredible journey of the manuscript itself and its lasting global impact.
You know, the physical notebook had a journey almost as dramatic as its authors. It was written in prison, left behind for safekeeping, got lost in the chaos of revolution for over a decade, and then, like something out of a movie, it was anonymously returned. It wasn't until 1960 that it was finally translated and published, reaching the massive audience it always deserved.
And when it was published, man, it received immediate and powerful praise. The famous Chinese poet Guo Morua gave it what is pretty much the highest compliment you can give. He said the poems were so skillful that you could slip them into a collection of ancient Tang or Song dynasty classics and no one would know the difference. He said the poetry was the man.
Guo Morua was just the start. The diary's universal message of resilience, human dignity, and the fight for freedom that resonated everywhere. It was translated into dozens of languages, carrying its message of an unbreakable human spirit to pretty much every corner of the globe.
So why does all this matter? I mean, who cares about an old book of poems? Well, because figuring this out isn't just some academic debate. It's about cementing the profound link between an extraordinary work of art and the extraordinary life that created it. These poems aren't just words on a page. They're a testament to the spirit of the person who lived through 13 months in 18 prisons to write them. Authenticity is what gives the steel in these poems its strength. It proves that the spirit really can be free, even when the body is locked in chains. And that's a truth worth fighting for.